the bankrupt of creativity at Ubisoft. Welcome, my friends. My name is Kaiju Gus, or you can call me Gus, and welcome to my channel. And today I'm going to be talking about the lack of creativity in gameplay design, world design, and the poor decision making at Ubisoft. Going to be mainly focusing on Assassin's Creed, as it's such an iconic series, but lately it feels like Ubisoft has lost sight of its core design principles that made it stand out and the identity of the game. With Assassin's Creed Shadows released on March 20th, and recently we had a hands-on preview on the game where gaming journalists and content creators alike were invited down to play the game. With many thoughts and impressions of the game, there is a bit of a big concern on Yasuke's character in terms of his gameplay design. From the previews, and the confirmation from the lead game designer that Yasuke will not be an assassin in this game. So it begs the question, why play as Yasuke? We aren't playing a RPG fantasy for a samurai, we're playing Assassin's Creed Shadows. We are meant to be playing as an assassin. Yes, we have Naue, but why make a dual protagonist if most of the players are going to be playing as Naue? Naue can free run, she has a grapple hook, she can do stealth assassinations. Yasuke has the bare minimum of parkour, similar to Eivor in AC Valhalla. He can't stealth assassinate, and that's one thing as a difference between him and Eivor, because he doesn't have any hidden blade, and he's not going to be an assassin in this game. He's just purely a combat-focused character. And now we're being able to take out lights, and that's the gameplay mechanic that's been solved in this game, being able to use the shadows for stealth. Why play as Yasuke who can't do that? With YouTubers like YourRaptor and SkillUp both saying that Yasuke feels like he belongs to a world that's designed for Naue. It all goes back to gameplay design choices and world design choices. From the start of this RPG era with the release of Origins, Ubisoft has veered away from the core mechanics and designs that made Assassin's Creed. And now I'm going to focus on 4 Assassin's Creed titles: Assassin's Creed Unity, Assassin's Creed Syndicate, Assassin's Creed Valhalla, and Assassin's Creed Mirage, and focus on what they did best and what they did wrong in terms of gameplay design and world design. And first on the list is Assassin's Creed Unity, where it felt truly like playing as an assassin. I'm not saying Ezio isn't an assassin, because that guy is. France, Paris, 1789, 1794. Chaos in the streets, a revolution at the doors. What a perfect setting for an Assassin's Creed game. With revolutionaries in the streets, the tall buildings, and the beautiful architecture, this world truly felt immersive. But there's one thing that stands out about this world, and it's that the world is designed to cater to parkour. It's designed with parkour in mind, with beams, window ledges, balconies, rooftops being close to each other, tightropes across the alleyways or the streets. It allows the player to parkour and free run throughout the city, making it their playground. You can get from one side of the city to the other by free running. And with the amazing parkour animations, free running has never felt this good before. I know scenic backgrounds in open world games can be truly amazing, but this, come on. This is outstanding. But aside from that, and beautiful architecture in the background, but you can truly see how many buildings are available for the player to free run and to make use of. This game really encourages free running to be used and actually make it as a mechanic for the player to be dependent on, opposed to from the RPG games where you have your open world barren lands where you just go back on horseback. In this game, it's a no. It truly wants you to use the free running mechanic. As you can see here with the ledges, the beams, the rooftops, and the amount of places for you to mount onto, giving the player so many different options and paths to take to get around the city. It's a map that's been well designed and well thought of, really taking the parkour mechanic to its core and building upon that, really making the player use the parkour mechanic, unlike other games where some certain mechanics just become useless. We're going to go from Paris to London. We're going to be looking at Assassin's Creed Syndicate. London 1868. And we can already see one difference between Unity and Syndicate, and that's the streets. the streets are a lot wider and bigger now. So from jumping from one building to the other across the street wasn't doable. So the devs had to think of a compromise to the parkour system, and that was the grapple hook. The free running up and the free running down parkour controls are the same as Unity, with the same fluid animations, but where the difference between the two comes in is the design choices. Unity was designed with parkour in mind, however, Syndicate was designed with the time period in mind, which meant there had to be a compromise to the parkour system. Now with the grapple hook, yes, it helps getting across the streets, however, it means you can scale up the building by just pressing L1. Whereas Unity, where you had to scale up the building and use your surroundings to get around. In Syndicate, you can just press L1 and it'll take you straight up to the top of the building. So it kind of defeats the purpose of a free run. If you can just go up to a building and just press L1 and just grapple straight up, what is the need of free running up? This is where design choices really matter. And in Ubisoft's case, their design choices took a turn for the worst. Yes, Origins was a good game, I'll say it's a good game, but the RPG element in that game doesn't fit Assassin's Creed, which then spawned two massive open world RPG games, Odyssey and Valhalla. You can clearly see from this synchronization point, it's just open barren lands with nothing engaging about. This design choice meant that free running had to take a step back. From the days of where you can free run from one side of the map to the other, here it's just impossible. And it meant horseback riding was the only way of traversing around the map. This design choice meant it affected one of the core aspects of Assassin's Creed, and that is free running. The identity of Assassin's Creed just becomes less and less with each of these RPG games. With Odyssey, playing as Cassandra, the Eagle Bearer, and not being an assassin because it was before Origins, and you play as a mercenary, and then in Valhalla you play as a Viking, who has a hidden blade, is able to do social stealth, but doesn't become an assassin at the end of it. They remain to choose as a Viking. So what's the point in playing in an Assassin's Creed game where you don't even be an assassin? And then the assassin element here was piss poor. It was about just conquering lands and unifying a New England. So my question is, with the success of these RPG games, why hasn't Ubisoft just created a new IP to cater to massive open world RPG games? Instead of destroying pre-established mechanics and tenets of an existing franchise and alienating it between its original fan base and new fan base. Valhalla made 1 billion because it's an open world RPG Viking experience. They even included fantasy elements, fighting mythical creatures and things like that. If you want to do that, why don't you just make an open world fantasy RPG where you're not restricted to pre-existing lore? Instead, you subsequently destroy the years of foundation of lore and design the older titles built, and then the microtransactions. I remember this game, when the reviews came out, no one talked about the microtransactions because they weren't there at the time. Ubisoft purposely left out the microtransactions. The only things they had was cosmetics, but they didn't have any XP boosters or maps and things like that, or pay to win weapons, where weapons have certain buffs and stats that made them overpowered. But instead, they included it weeks after the reviews, so no one would catch on. And this game being an 80-hour schlock, where it felt like a grind to complete the main story, they included an XP booster. So this game was designed in mind to have microtransactions at its forefront. This is why Ubisoft is fake. And with the backlash from gamers and the community on Ubisoft's practices amongst other game franchises, something weird happened. Ubisoft then decided to make a full game out of a DLC, and we got Assassin's Creed Mirage. Mirage promised to go back to the roots, back to how Assassin's Creed was, where it was parkour, stealth, assassinations, and that we'd play as an actual assassin. So did they deliver those promises? I want to have a look. 9th century Baghdad. What a beautiful setting. But there's something quite interesting here. If we look at the map, we can see narrow streets, loads of buildings, a big old city. It can only mean one thing, right? Free running. A map that's designed for free running and parkour. Now, this being built on the Anvil engine and using the same engine as Valhalla as it was meant to be a DLC, and the parkour being very quite limited in that game. The question is, what more can they do with this, and will the parkour stack up? With free running up and wall ejects finally as the main controls for free running, no free running down, just a drop option, but it's expected since it's the same engine as Valhalla, and Ubisoft Bordeaux only having a limited time to make this game. What they did here was great.
Finally, we get to play in a city again, with zip lines, beams, window ledges, and things to platform on. Parkour hasn't felt this great, and also getting to play as an assassin again. We haven't been an assassin since Origins, and technically, I mean that was obviously the game that started the Brotherhood, or at least the core tenets of the creed. But yeah, we get to play as an assassin again. Mirage showed promise. It showed promise of a studio understanding what the IP is, what made the game so famous, what made the game so popular, and that's being playing an assassin, respecting what came before, and sticking to the general narrative of Assassin's Creed, whereas the last two games have not. And if Bordeaux were given more time on this game, they could have fixed a few areas where the game was lacking. One would have been the story, from a narrative point of view, and the other is atmosphere. Now, the city is great, but it lacked atmosphere. Unity, that map, it had atmosphere. It was in the Revolution time, and the amount of NPCs that were in the streets was amazing for a game of its time. And with Mirage, they could have easily done it. Especially, the market stalls in this game, they could have had loads of NPCs, made it hustle and bustle, and bringing the streets of Baghdad alive. It could have also contributed more to the social stuff, allowing players to then blend into the crowd and get away, or even do more features with it. But with Bordeaux not having that, not having the development time needed, what they did was great. Back to the point of this video, Ubisoft's lack of creativity. We looked at AC Unity, Syndicate, Valhalla and Mirage, and the key design choices that progressed the franchise for the good and the bad. Unity, a game that needed more development, introduced a smooth and flashy, satisfying parkour system, and also progressing the stealth system, building a world that is designed to complement the parkour system and encouraging players to make use of that system to its full potential, and then also creating an atmosphere within the city to be taken back by. And then there's Syndicate, using the same engine as Unity and making further tweaks to improve the performance of the engine. But the game fell short on a few things. It fell short on a forgettable feeling, poor narrative, and the setting of the game, which made them make a compromise on the parkour system by introducing the grapple hook to zip across the wide streets, taking away the foundation of the parkour system that Unity built. Then Valhalla, a game that has an open and empty world with a lifeless atmosphere, a game that doesn't know what it wants to be, and stuck in the middle ground, completely destroying the foundation the series has built, and the potential of a new IP that's not restricted, and the freedom to do whatever. Gameplay that's designed to steer players to take the XP boosters to finish a boring and bloated main story. And then Mirage, a game where it's designed to fix the mistakes of what came before, by taking the elements that made the older titles successful, remembering its identity and core tenets, giving us an improved parkour system compared to the last two entries. Design a world that works around the parkour system so players are able to make use of that system, allowing stealth to be the main focus, and finally playing as an assassin in an Assassin's Creed game. Ubisoft needs to reevaluate their plans. Making different type of AC games may work, but can also backfire with certain groups only buying particular style of games or lose interest in the franchise and gravitate towards another IP that has a similar style of gameplay and design, like the Ghost series from Sony. Going forward, Ubisoft needs to focus on gameplay, design and choices first, instead of a time period, in my opinion, and then having a base of foundations, which will make it easier to find a time period and allow them to make use of the core mechanics of the game. And then having a new time period each entry will exhaust them of places to go. They need to take a page out of the Ezio trilogy. And what made them great is that they built a likable and an interesting character, having a great narrative and seeing that character have growth instead of making a one-time character. Build a story that the player will be able to follow, and for us players to be invested like how we were during the Ezio trilogy.
To summarize, Ubisoft needs to focus on world design and gameplay design, and do they fit with the pre-existing lore and established identity? With Shadows around the corner and the amount of pressure Ubisoft is facing due to their financial struggles, will the current Ubisoft be able to survive and prevail, or will we see a new Ubisoft emerge from the shadows? If you liked what I talked about here today, a like on the video would be amazing. As it's my first ever video of this format, any advice or tips would be appreciated, and if you can subscribe and share the video, I would be truly grateful to you. Thank you for your time, my friends. Keep safe and have a lovely day.